Let's look into how we do an update to our document, our firestore document. And if you search for Firebase documentation up here and you go to, if you are at this page, I'm at the Cloud Firestore and under Add and Manage Data and Add Data. And then on the left side here it says Update a Document. And we want to do this. We want to update our specific document in here. So not only opening the box, but actually like we have it here, we actually want to delete it. We don't want to delete it, but how we do delete, we also want to do something similar to with the update in here. Now we already have the function called update item. So we're going to be using this. So just after my edit item, I'm going to do the update item here. And in my parentheses, my comma separation, so we don't get any errors. And in this one, we want to grab get to the database, get to the specific collection, which is called menu items. And then we want to, instead of doing a delete like we do down here, we want to use a update. And then we have to set everything up accordingly so it actually does what it needs to. All right, so first things first. I just want to have this open here as well so we can actually see that the change is actually being correct. So I'm just opening my Firestore database in a browser. But what we want to do is go to this where it says update document, and then we're going to grab this piece of information and then rewrite the code because it's not exactly what we want. It's set up to their test, right? So we're just going to copy this and then reuse it. Now go to your update here and then create some spaces so you can see where it starts end and paste this in. And let's just indent this so it looks better, so I don't lose my mind. So what we want to do is, we don't want this because that's set up for theirs. Of course, we don't want to store it in the variable, we don't care. We still want to connect to the database and the collection, and this is for their cities. But if we check out our, where to go, Firebase down here, I'm just going to grab it up here. You can see we already have the DB collections set to menu items. So I can just again use this DB menu add since we already are importing it here, right? Sweet, so prepared. So instead of having this part here, so it just says .doc right now, let's copy this in so it says DB menu add .doc, and then in here we're going to change this up a little bit, and let's just, well, let's leave it for now. And after this, instead of using the delete, we're going to use the update function here, right? So it actually is down here as well. So let's type in update like this and do our parentheses, and then we can actually remove this part here because we don't need this. We're not using the variable as they are before. So, and remove the dot here, so it stands exactly like this. If it were to be on one line, it would look like this all the way down here. Oh, sorry, you know what I'm getting at, right? Like this. But it's really up to you if you want to have separate lines or anyway. Here we have our promise, our then promise. So if this is true, if this is completed, then you're doing something. If we have our error, then you do something else. This is shouldn't be, maybe it's a little bit confusing, but it's basically just if you're doing it correctly, then you get the document successfully updated. If not, then you get an error, basically. But what we want to do is we want to switch out the way they're writing it here, because they're using ECMAScript 5, and this will give us issue with some of the things we want to do a little bit later. So we're going to change this to the fat arrow notation instead. So remove this where it says the function, and just after this just add in your fat arrow notation. So we're going to do, we don't really care about the catch function here because we're not going to use here. But this is what we want to have inside this right now, because we're going to use this keyword to grab and change different states in our admin.vue. So if you have problems saying, well, this key is not recognized or something like this, make sure you check if you have set up correctly your fat arrow notation here for ECMAScript 6. Awesome. So let's continue here. So we want to grab the document, and then we want to see if we can grab the ID, because that's what we want to change, right? And the thing we want to update is what we pass in, which is the item. So this .item, because we're outside the scope. So let's click save here and see what errors we get. So go back to our browser. I'm just going to add in a new item we can test on. So test without T and test, and then the price is 23. And then if we go back, we should have this here, right? And if I open it up, and I can actually track it here as well, open this up, I get the information. If I click test and hit edit and go to my console log, I don't get the document successfully updated. And we can also go up here, see, well, where is this new one? It didn't do anything to my actual edit here. So we need to figure out, there comes the error, reference ID is not defined. So we can't just use this. What if we do this dot ID? Let's try. So we have our ID ready, right? So let's do this again, test, do this, edit, and click. We still get an error because it doesn't really, the way we're using this through our, when we click it here. So, oops, can I just click it here before I tell you more? So the ID here is not as easy for it to track. So what we're going to do is we're going to, in the next video, we're going to take the ID up here and store this in the system. So for each time we do a click to have a pop-up, we're going to store that ID, and then we're going to use this ID in our system. All right, see you in the next video.